My name is Emily Carter, and on the surface, my life looks perfect. I'm sitting in my corner office on the 21st floor, the New York skyline glowing like diamonds outside the glass walls. My silk blouse still carries the faint warmth of the morning sun, and the untouched cappuccino on my desk leaves a swirl of steam in the air. From the outside, I look like a woman who has everything figured out. But perfection has its shadows. Every success I've built, every polished detail people admire, it all carries the ghost of a betrayal I never talk about. This morning, as I flipped through emails, my phone buzzed. For a second, I froze. The name flashing across the screen wasn't just any name. It was Sarah, my older sister. My chest tightened. The same sister who once drained my entire savings account with a few keystrokes and then blocked my number, as if I didn't exist. I could almost hear my own pulse echoing in the silence of my office. I hadn't seen her in years. I hadn't even heard her voice. And now, suddenly, there she was, reaching back into my carefully built life, like a ghost rising from the grave. The screen kept vibrating. My hands, steady as steel in boardrooms, trembled now. Should I answer? Or let the past keep ringing unanswered? I knew one thing for certain. Whatever waited on the other side of that call would drag me straight back into the fire I thought I'd left behind. I was 23 when it happened. Back then, my world was small: a rented room in Queens, a part-time job at a bookstore, and a savings account I guarded like a treasure chest. Every extra dollar I put away wasn't just money. It was my escape plan. My chance to finally move out of survival mode and step into a real life. Sarah was different from me. Older, confident, always with an easy smile that could convince anyone she had their best interest at heart. She'd swing by sometimes, her perfume filling the room before she did, her laughter echoing like she had the whole world figured out. One evening, I remember, she leaned against my kitchen counter, sipping a glass of cheap red wine, and said, "Emily, you work too hard to be living like this. Let me help. I can manage your savings for you, make them grow. Trust me, little sis." And I did. God, I did. I handed her access to the account I had built dollar by dollar. Weeks later, on a rainy Tuesday morning, I stopped at an ATM on my way to work. I still remember the cold raindrops sliding down my hair, dripping onto the screen as I typed in my PIN. My balance flashed back at me, $13.42. That's all. I checked again. And again. Same result. Every cent was gone. I called her immediately, my voice shaking, my breath fogging up in the damp air. No answer. Text after text. No reply. By evening, when my calls finally went through, it wasn't her voice that answered. It was the flat tone of rejection. "This number has been blocked." The betrayal was so sharp it stole the air from my lungs. I sat on the curb outside the bookstore, clutching my useless phone, rainwater soaking through my sneakers, and felt like my whole world had been set on fire. That night, I cried until my chest hurt. But in the middle of the darkness, there was one small light. Mrs. Grace, the bookstore owner, found me wiping my eyes in the storage room the next morning. She didn't ask many questions. She just pressed an old leather journal into my hands and said softly, "Build something no one can take away from you." I ran my fingers over the cracked spine of that journal. I didn't know it yet, but that sentence was about to change everything. Because if Sarah had taken my savings, she wasn't going to take my future. At first, I didn't know where to begin. All I had was the journal Mrs. Grace had given me, a broken heart, and a bank account that barely had enough to buy a week's groceries. But I started writing. Every night, after closing the bookstore, I'd sit by the tiny window in my room and scribble in those pages. Ideas, dreams, fragments of plans. The words became my blueprint. I picked up extra shifts wherever I could, stocking shelves, waiting tables, even cleaning apartments on weekends. My body ached, my nails were chipped, my shoes wore thin. But with each paycheck, I set aside a few dollars. Slowly, I bought myself an old secondhand laptop. That laptop became my lifeline. I taught myself skills the world said weren't meant for girls like me. Freelance, writing, basic graphic design, eventually digital marketing. I watched free tutorials at night, bleary-eyed, a cup of instant coffee, my only companion. It wasn't glamorous. My first client paid me $50 for a week's worth of work. But when that payment hit my account, I cried, not because of the money, but because it was mine. Untouchable. Earned with nothing but my mind and my determination. One client turned into three. Three turned into 10. Within a year, I wasn't just surviving, I was building. That's when I met Michael, a senior consultant who had been one of my early clients. Instead of brushing me off as just another freelancer, he respected me. He became a mentor, teaching me about contracts, negotiations, and most importantly, self-worth. Emily, he told me one late night after reviewing a proposal, stop underselling yourself. You're not just talented, you're valuable. Don't let anyone treat you otherwise. His words became another turning point. I rebranded myself, raised my rates, and began to attract bigger projects. Companies that once would have ignored me now sought me out. Soon, I hired a small team, 3 freelancers who were just like me once. Hungry, determined, underestimated. Together, we built something real. And through it all, I stayed silent about my family. Online, I kept things modest. A casual photo of coffee here, a book recommendation there. Never the office space I rented in Manhattan, never the clients I worked with, never the growth I was achieving. Because a part of me still remembered that girl on the curb in the rain, the one left with $13.42 and a broken heart. I wanted my success to grow quietly, hidden, until it was undeniable. There were nights I collapsed on my couch, too exhausted to even change clothes, staring at the city lights outside my window. But instead of despair, I felt something else, a fire. Every late night, every rejection, every ounce of self-doubt was fuel. Because the truth was, Sarah may have stolen my savings, but she had also given me a gift without realizing it. She forced me to build a life no one could ever steal again. It was a crisp autumn morning when the past walked right back into my life. The message came first. Emily, I need to see you. Please. It was from Sarah, the same sister who had once erased me with the swipe of a finger. I ignored it. But then came the second message, this time for my mother. Sarah's in trouble. She really needs your help. At least meet her once. For years, I had avoided these calls. But something in me shifted. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the quiet confidence of knowing who I had become. Either way, I agreed. The meeting was set at my office. That morning, as I adjusted the sleeves of my ivory blazer and slipped into my heels, I looked around my space. Walls lined with modern art. Floor-to-ceiling glass windows overlooking Manhattan. A mahogany desk polished to a mirror shine. The scent of fresh lilies filling the room. This was my world now. When Sarah arrived with my parents, I watched their faces the moment they stepped inside. Their eyes widened, scanning every corner of the office. The gold-lettered sign on the wall, Carter and Company. Digital Solutions. The young employees walking past, greeting me warmly. Good morning, Miss Carter. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was thick, broken only by the hum of the city below. Finally, Sarah managed a strained laugh. Wow. I didn't know you were doing this well. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my legs, my voice calm but steady. That's because you never asked. My mother shifted uncomfortably. My father cleared his throat. Sarah's smile faltered. I let them take it all in before speaking again. The last time we spoke, Sarah, you emptied my savings account. Every penny I had. Do you remember? Her face drained of color. Emily, I raised a hand, stopping her. You don't have to explain. I remember it all. The $13.42 left in my account. The blocked calls. The silence. Her eyes filled with tears. I was desperate. I made a mistake. Please. I need your help now. I've lost my job. The bills are piling up. I don't know where else to go. For a moment, the old ache returned. The sting of betrayal, the memory of nights spent crying into my pillow. But then I glanced around at what I had built. And I realized I wasn't that broken girl anymore. I stood, walking to the window, my heels clicking softly against the marble floor. The city stretched endlessly below, alive and untouchable. When I turned back, I met her eyes. "Sarah," I said softly, "the account you drained wasn't my ending. It was my beginning." The words hung in the air like thunder. My father's eyes flickered with pride. My mother covered her mouth in disbelief. And Sarah just stared, stunned, as if seeing me for the very first time. I walked back to my desk, placing my palms on the polished wood. I built this from nothing. No shortcuts. No lies. And unlike you, I never had to steal a single cent. Her tears spilled over then, silent, helpless. And for the first time in years, I felt the shift. The power was no longer hers. It was mine. For a long moment, no one spoke. Sarah's shoulders shook as she cried quietly, my mother's hand resting on her arm, my father staring down at the polished floor as if searching for words. Finally, Sarah whispered, "Emily, please. I know I don't deserve it, but I need help. Just enough to get back on my feet. I swear I'll pay you back this time." I studied her face. The same sister who once wore confidence like a crown now looked small, almost fragile. And despite everything she'd done, a part of me still remembered the nights we used to stay up whispering secrets under our blankets, giggling about the future. I took a slow breath, choosing my words carefully. "I will help you," I said. Her head snapped up, eyes wide with disbelief. But not without conditions. The room fell silent again. I walked around my desk and sat on the edge, folding my arms. "First, you will unblock me. Not just on your phone, Sarah. On your heart. That wall you built between us? It comes down, or I walk away." She nodded quickly, tears spilling. "Okay, I will." "Second, you start working. No more shortcuts, no more lies. You find a real job, even if it's beneath what you think you deserve. If I'm investing in you, I need to see you invest in yourself." Her lips trembled, but she nodded again. "Yes." "Third, you will return every dollar you took from me. Not in cash. In character. You will pay me back by becoming someone trustworthy, someone our parents can actually rely on. Do you understand?" She broke then, sobbing openly, covering her face with her hands. My mother dabbed at her own tears, whispering, "Emily, thank you." But I wasn't finished. "And lastly," I said firmly, "if you ever touch another woman's hard-earned money again, if you ever betray someone the way you betrayed me, you won't just answer to them. You'll answer to me." My voice was steady, calm, but unshakable. Sarah looked up, her face blotched with tears, and whispered, "I promise. I'll change. I'll prove it." I studied her for a long moment, searching for the girl I once trusted. Maybe she was still in there, buried under the weight of her own mistakes. Finally, I placed a check on the desk, not for everything she wanted, but enough to cover her immediate crisis. "This is your lifeline, Sarah. What you do with it decides everything." Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. She looked at me with something I hadn't seen in her eyes for years: humility. For the first time since that rainy morning at the ATM, the balance had shifted. This time, I was the one setting the terms. The weeks that followed were strange, like watching a storm finally lose its thunder. Sarah took the job I arranged for her, answering phones at a small firm uptown. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest. Each time I checked in, I noticed small changes: the tired but real smile, the humility in her voice, the way she no longer carried that untouchable arrogance. It wasn't easy for her. Starting over never is. But for the first time, I saw effort. And that mattered more than any apology. One afternoon, I found myself flipping through the old leather journal Mrs. Grace had given me years ago. The pages were filled now, plans scribbled in the margins, ideas that had bloomed into contracts, strategies that had built the company surrounding me. And there it was again, in faded ink on the first page. "Build something no one can take away from you." I traced the words with my fingertip, my chest tightening with gratitude. That advice had carried me through nights of hunger, exhaustion, and heartbreak. It had turned betrayal into fuel. I thought of Sarah then, of the girl who once stole everything from me, and of the woman now trying, step by shaky step, to rebuild herself. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel anger. I felt release. Standing by my office window, the city stretched endlessly beneath me. I wasn't the broken 23-year-old anymore. I wasn't the girl crying on a rain-soaked curb. I was a woman who had survived, who had thrived, who had turned ashes into fire. And as I looked out at the glittering skyline, I whispered the truth, not just for Sarah, not just for my parents, but for myself. She may have stolen my savings once, but no one will ever steal the woman I've become. The words felt like freedom, the final closure to a story I no longer had to hide.